please do Kittysaurus, Zolphius, and Brushista and Flumbo for Garten of BANBAN Redesign 6 and do it tomorrow, okay? Did you hear me? Do the redesigns today of Garten of BANBAN. Do them, do them, do them. Do them, do them, do them now today right now, okay?
Hey guys, I'm Drago, and you heard the crazy BANBAN kid. I gotta do those redesigns, and I gotta do them now, okay? Ow, that really hurts. Ow. I don't think there's actually many characters left for me to do at this point. I am finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, guys. Oh my god, it's so beautiful. I'm so almost done. Though I bet people are going to come along and tell me about characters that I had no idea even existed, so... Anyways, we're back for another part of Garten of BANBAN redesigns, and without further ado, let's go on with it. The three characters I chose for this episode were three highly requested ones, and we're starting off with Tarta Bird. Obviously the sort of counterpart slash partner to a Bird, and obviously I wanted them to sort of match but at the same time be unique to each other, because in-game Tarta Bird is just kind of a recolor of a Bird. It's literally just like they've done a copy and paste and then repainted it and that's it. So I want them to be unique from each other while still fitting a theme so that they do fit together, but you can tell they're two different characters. So while with the Bird I made her a sort of land bird, I sort of based her off like an ostrich or an emu or a cassowary, you know, those big land birds. Tarta Bird I decided to lean into a shoebill stork. These guys are like living dinosaurs, they are amazing. But when you look at them front on and they stare at you, they have such a hard death stare to them. And it's actually quite terrifying. Even though these birds are actually sweethearts in real life, they actually look really terrifying when they stare at you like that. And that's what I wanted to go with. But of course, as usual, starting with a cartoon form, need to make him look friendlier. So I kept the shoebill stork theme, but I also matched him with a Bird's cartoon form. The main difference is that Tarta Bird is chunkier. Not necessarily in his legs, but in everything else in his body, he's a bit chunkier. His beak is bigger, and he's not quite as dainty as a Bird is. At least not in the cartoon form. I went quite simple for his cartoon form. Instead of 3 feathers on top of his head, I only gave him 2. Just small things like that to separate him enough from a Bird. Because like I said before, I don't want them to just be a recolor of each other. As for his colours, I went pretty spot on to what the game has him, just a bit brighter for the cartoon form. I did edit some of it because the really harsh red with the blue wasn't quite working, so I just slightly dulled that down a little bit, not much. Because without that, I just felt it was a bit flat and boring. Now onto the monster form. As I said before, I wanted to do a shoebill stork and I wanted him to have that really hard stare that they do. And when I do these redesigns, I try to think of how they could work in game. And I don't mean the canon game, I mean like this version that I'm doing here. So while a Bird is quite aggressive, she will run after you, she will chase you down, she will probably be screeching while she does. When she gets you, she will kick out with her powerful legs. She will actively try and end you. Tarta Bird I see as a bit calmer, and not in terms of that he's friendly, but in terms of that he doesn't actively chase you like that. I imagine him always lurking in the shadows, and he will slowly emerge from the shadows staring you down, and if you turn and run and you think you've got away from him, he will somehow always be there to emerge from the shadows wherever you end up. No matter what you do, he will always show up. And he will just calmly stalk towards you, staring you down. And I imagine when he finally reaches you, when you're too exhausted to run anymore, rather than using his legs like a Bird does because he has thinner legs, he will instead utilise that huge beak of his. And this is why I decided to also give the beak loads of rows of little teeth on the inside, which obviously shoebill storks don't have in real life, but this doesn't necessarily have to be 100% accurate to real life. So essentially the difference between these two is that a Bird will chase after you really aggressively, while Tarta Bird will lurk in the shadows and just stalk you that way. And they probably do work well as a tag team. A Bird chases you and corners you, and then Tarta Bird will emerge from that corner and take you down. With his colours, as usual, I went for sort of the normal colours, but dialing them down, desaturating them a bit. It was actually kind of difficult to get these really bright colours to work for a more realistic design. So I had to really dial them down and desaturate them. Really muddy them up, actually. And usually I don't really agree with muddying colours up, but I think in this case it actually worked quite well. Usually muddying up your colours is a bad thing, sort of. If you think about like watercolours, your colours will get muddied up if they blend together too much and they will just sort of make up this horrible muddy brown. But here I felt it actually worked quite well because it meant I was able to really lean into the shadows aspects of him. If you think about how he'd be lurking in the shadows, you don't want him to have bright colours, otherwise you're going to see him. So having these dull, muddy colours actually works really well for that because it means he can blend into the shadows much better. I also wanted to give him these really stark red eyes that will contrast nicely with the shadows, and that's probably the first thing you see as he emerges. Just these two really stark red angry eyes staring you down. Once I was satisfied with his colouring, I went on to do the shading. As usual, just a really rough coat of overlay shading over the top of it just to exaggerate the shadows and highlights in areas. I don't like to go too overboard with these designs because otherwise I'll be there like for hours and hours making these, and I just don't have the time to do that. Nor honestly the motivation to do that with BANBAN designs. I'm not interested enough in BANBAN to put that much effort into it. I do this for you guys, I know you guys love it, but the way my brain works, if I'm not interested in something, I find it really hard to do. So yeah, I like to make these a different sort of slightly quicker style than my usual art. Anyways, the final touch was giving some of the same handprints that a Tarta Bird has, which I totally forgot to do before I stopped the recording, so that's not actually on the recording, but I did it in the same way as a Tarta Bird, where I just got a free image on Google of a handprint and just morphed it and coloured it to fit on the body. I specifically put one on his eye and beak to make it look like someone's trying to push him back, and yeah, then he was done. Next up we have a character that's probably been requested since like part 2. We're finally doing it. Here's Kittysaurus. And you can't tell me that I'm the only one that looked at this thing for the first time and thought that was a fox. You can't tell me that's a cat. That is a fox. That's not a cat. Look at it and then look at a fox. That's not a cat. That is a fox. I'm sorry. I will die on this hill. That's a fox. Anyways, obviously they meant to be going for a ginger cat here, which is weird because when I looked on the wiki and saw that Kittysaurus is a she, I think, a majority of ginger cats are males, like 80% of ginger cats are males. It's really rare to get a female ginger cat. And I thought about doing a different cat type. I thought about doing tortoiseshell because they're more likely to be female cats than males. But honestly, I thought if I go too different with colouring, it's just not going to look like Kittysaurus at all. So I kept the ginger colouring, and I guess it's possible to have a female ginger cat. It's just really rare. Anyways, with the cartoon form, I wanted to go really silly. This really stupid looking cat thing. Big eyes, turn out, really embracing that gremlin stupidity, that zero brain cell energy that cats have, especially ginger cats. So I went for a pose where she's kind of sat up with her arms sort of in a meerkat pose. Her legs are splayed out stupidly. She just looks really silly. And she's probably a class pet or something, I don't know. Probably a nice class pet or a school mascot maybe. Either way, she's just this silly, goofy little thing. And I also wanted to add a lot more detail into her colouring. So rather than just a flat red ginger and a flat white, I actually put in stripes and stuff to her colouring. And these stripes are going to be way more sort of exaggerated in the monster form, where they're going to be a bit more realistic. But here I made them simple because obviously we're looking at a cartoon form. And in cartoons, they don't want complex designs, otherwise they're really difficult and time consuming to animate. Now, fun fact about me, I absolutely love dinosaurs. I have since I was a kid. I actually have like real life dinosaur fossils. I've got the jaw of a mosasaur. I've got a tooth of a spinosaur. And I bloody love them. They're amazing. And dinosaurs are so cool. And I also absolutely adore cats. I have one of my own. This is Flo. She's absolutely adorable. As I'm doing this voiceover, she is currently scratching at the door that I have closed because she wants to get in. But merging two things that I really love, so that being cats and dinosaurs together, I didn't think I'd get into this design so much as I did, but I was locked in on this one. I actually spent probably the longest on this design that I have of any other design in this whole series, because finally it was something that I was actually interested in. So I started off by blocking out the shape of a T-Rex, and in my sketch I would work more on manipulating it to be a cat. That was mainly going to come in the face. But I also wanted to do this idea where you could see that the mouth of the cat has sort of opened too far. A cat's mouth cannot open as far as a T-Rex's mouth can, and so as a result the mouth has actually ripped, and that tear goes down its neck. And this is where she has tried to open the mouth, but it's just not worked. I must admit, this part was a little bit inspired by Zoocosis. I really enjoyed playing that game, and I was sort of thinking of the gorilla design from it, where it has the mouth that's split open down the neck. I really liked that idea, and it was sort of inspired by that, honestly. In sketching, I was initially going to have the face and muzzle of the cat be the sort of same size as the T-Rex's face. Problem with that is that once I sketched it out, it actually looked more like a dog or something. So what I ended up doing was actually shortening the muzzle, make it a lot more cat-like, and doing that in the end actually made it look a lot better. The rest of the body was pretty straightforward. Honestly, it's just kind of a fluffy T-Rex. I made sure to sort of have the fur on its back stood up, the same way that cats do when they're scared or angry. And the tail, I did round it into more of like a cat tail rather than a pointy T-Rex tail. Now in colouring, I just went much more realistic shades for the fur. It's not just a pure orange and it's not just a pure white. And rather than doing how I usually do, I just do the complete flat colour. I actually use my paintbrush here to paint it in and just get an idea of the fur flow and stuff. I was heavily using a bristle texture on my brush, which really helps give this nice fur texture. You just sort of loosely do your brush strokes over it, and the bristles sort of mimic the actual bristles of a paintbrush. And it just creates this lovely blended together fur texture. Once I got all the fur in, I then went on to doing the stripes. Now, I just put them in to start off with my usual line art brush, and I put them on the multiplier layer so that they could blend it into the fur texture behind them. But obviously I need to blend them in a little bit more. They're not just these flat solid stripes. And so this is where I use my smudge brush, and I put it onto a bristle texture as well, and I just lightly went over and I smudged each stripe. Doing this blended each stripe into the fur really made it look like it is part of the fur, and it follows the direction and the pattern of the fur. How many times can I say fur? And I think this turned out looking really, really cool. Rest of the texture was pretty straightforward. Main thing I did was that on the ton I sort of put these lumps and stuff on because cats are quite a rough ton. And then it was onto the simple shading just to add a bit more depth in areas. And the finishing touch was just adding some highlights on the whiskers, some blood around the split open parts, and some spits coming out from where he's roaring or she is roaring. And then it was done. Okay, so this one is also another highly requested character, and I've put him off for so long because, like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this thing? Is it a snake? Is it a worm? Is it a sauropod? Is it just a dude with a really, really long neck? I don't know what he is. So I posted him on my friend's Discord server and I said, hey, what is this supposed to be? I am completely confused. And one of them said that it's the Spanish spoon. Because apparently in the game he has like one line that is in Spanish or something, and he kind of looks like a spoon that is used for those purposes. That's all I see now. That's what I'm going to call him from now on. Anyways, I decided to lean into the man with a really, really long neck direction, and I pretty much had to completely reinvent this guy to get it to work. Like, I had no ideas for the cartoon form. Like, I didn't know how I was going to adapt to this pretty much cryptid thing into a cartoon. So I had to really, really think about it. I had to think about what is missing in the cartoon so far. And I didn't really have this cool student yet, or rather a cool guy. He's probably an adult who is around in the neighbourhood. He probably, I don't know, he likes to listen to his music. He's really chill. Maybe he does some skateboarding or something, I don't know. Basically just this cool, chill guy. And I specifically remembered a comment from a long time ago on one of the previous parts. I don't remember who made the comment. I don't remember what part it was on. Maybe in editing I'll be able to find it. If I do, it'll be up on the screen now. But someone said for the cartoon form to give him a hoodie. And honestly, I really like that idea. That's what I lean into, and that's where my sort of chill guy idea came from as well. So thank you to that commenter that I can't remember who it is, but thank you. Initially, I was going to make him just like a proper humanoid, or proper human really, because I started to make him humanoid so that it sort of fit in a bit better with BANBAN and BANBALINA. They're more humanoids. And it wouldn't really make sense with them if there's just like random humanoids and then everything else is an animal. So I thought I definitely need to add some more humanoids in there. And I also thought about the Javanian citizens, I think they're called. The alien looking dudes. Zolphius kind of reminds me of them. Maybe he's like a version of them or something. I don't know, but I decided to also use the Javanian students for inspiration here for this design too. As for his monster form, I definitely wanted to give his face a skull shape, and my idea was that he had really stretched out skin, that his neck has elongated to a point where his skin can't take it, and it is just stretched and sore and horrible from all of that. Obviously, I think he's meant to be like the biggest character in the whole game or something, so I really lent into that size, even bigger than Jumbo Josh. And I think his line that he says in the game is something like, "I'm sorry." And I thought maybe like his mouth isn't a proper mouth, the skin is over his mouth, it just stretches over the mouth. So he has no actual mouth and he can't really speak as a result. And it just sort of made me think maybe he's sort of keeping something a secret, or he's ashamed of something he did and he wants to say it, he wants to get it out, but he just can't because his mouth doesn't work. Quite a tragic character actually. His monster form I made quite different from the cartoon form. Only thing is that I kept the hoodie to keep it consistent. Otherwise I just made him this really freakishly tall guy. Freakishly long limbs, very skinny, and obviously the really long neck, in which I made sure to exaggerate the spinal cord as well, because that's always quite uncanny and creepy. Basically I just made everything long and skinny and spindly to really lean into the uncanny valley vibes. As for colouring, this is actually one of the few characters in BANBAN that I think has a good colour to it. Finally, not an oversaturated mess. So I mostly used the canon colours for him. This sort of bluey, greeny, grey. Really helped exaggerate the broken skin actually, because I could get a really pale colour. And if you stretch out skin, obviously it's going to lose its pigment, it gets a bit more pale. So honestly, this colour palette really worked well for it. I just made sure to add all the creases and the folds and the indents from the stretching. Make sure to make that really exaggerated in the texturing. And other than that, the rest of it was quite simple really. I added in the general shading, which I had some trouble with because I wanted to do a sort of green light to him, but it became really saturated. I was struggling with sort of not making it too saturated, but at the same time not just making it black and white shading. So I fiddled around with that a lot and eventually got a shade and a blending mode that worked well together with the colour palette I had, and then he was all done. Okay. Who do we even have left at this point? What, we have the Javanian citizens? I guess the naughty ones I haven't done yet. That blue BANBAN guy that's going to be coming along. But like, surely there's not many other people left at this point. So hopefully, God, hopefully for my sanity, the next part will be the last part. But hey, if there are other characters that I don't know about, then leave them in the comments below, I say through gritted teeth, because I just want this to be over. But yeah, just leave down below in the comments who you want to see me redesign next. And if you enjoyed this video, maybe leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. You can hit the bell to know when I upload the next part of BANBAN redesigns. God kill me. And I will hopefully see all of you wonderful people in the next video. Bye!